Hey there. You gotta time it to the beat by wannabe, never will be DJ and Dreams. Taking it back. So hey, Peggy, great to see you. How's your week going?
Oh, great. Just nursing a spouse with a knee replacement is fun. I'm about to change my name, but other than that, I'm good.
God forbid for once the world isn't all about Peggy.
Oh my God. It's like when our kids were little and they're like, Dad, 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 Mom, Mom, Mom. And you go, what? And they're like, I forgot.
Thank God we're having Mac on talking about trauma, because it sounds like you are putting your husband through a lot of unnecessary trauma. And this might be something he needs to watch. I am having grandbaby number 6.
I'm really excited.
I'm not having her, but someone I know is having grandbaby number 6 tomorrow morning. So
can't wait to see
very excited about that. So I'm going to bring Mac in. Mac, welcome to the BAC Story.
Welcome back to the BAC Story.
Welcome back to the BAC Story.
Thank you, and thank you. I just got a chance to see Peggy.
Yeah, I got to see him in
Palm Springs. Have lunch with her. Yep. You didn't show up.
I'm going to be. Mac is back. Mac is our trauma person. Mac has the program Post-Traumatic Winning, Turning Trauma into Joy. And I was fortunate enough, because of an invite from Peggy, to go through his course, which I highly, highly, highly recommend for anyone to go through. I did not think I had trauma. I'm kind of the howdy doody of life. Everything pretty howdy doody of recovery, howdy doody of everything. And I didn't think I had a lot of trauma, but I learned from Mac that trauma doesn't have a size on it. It's front page, back page. It's still trauma, even though, and I've learned that it's okay to tell your inner secrets and have 2 of your closest friends laugh at you because you got ditched on the dance floor as a, I think I was a junior anyways. But no, Mac.
Can we go into that a little deeper then? Because I've heard it, and every time we go a little bit deeper, it gets a little bit more interesting. Jeff actually sent me a picture from that dance floor. He went to a reunion, and I get this picture of him standing on this floor. He goes, "This is where it happened." And I said, "Oh my God, oh my God!"
I was still looking for her after she ditched me. But anyways, so this trauma thing, and we'll put the links up. Post-traumatic winning. What Mac does is very serious, and the guy is great at it. I'm not going to go into the bio, but Mac comes from a military background. He works with all the 4 main branches of the military, hugely involved and responsible for reduction in suicide attempts, the whole gamut, and has hit on something. And the list of people I know that you have touched and affected positively is huge. And we have the videos up where we've talked before, but you and I were speaking a couple of weeks ago, and you mentioned that you have, through some of the courses you're doing or the workshops, you've realized that maybe we need to broaden our base going into recovery. And I'm going to just hand this over to you, or not recovery, but dealing with trauma. How did that notion come about, and what do you mean? And I'll let you just take it from here.
Well, first of all, I love coming on with you guys, right? 2 of my favorite people. We all hung out at Peggy's place a few months ago, so we got to be in the same place at the same time. It was very cool.
Cookies out of the bag weren't even exciting, fresh, or anything.
Exactly. The Peggy is the person that's responsible for the work I do online, which is, I can't tell you how many people's lives that you've impacted, because when Peggy saw it, I got a phone call from Peggy and another person, and they said, "Hey, you need to do seminars I said, yeah, I don't know how to do that. And they said, well, we do. If we put one together, would you do it? And I said, yeah. And I get a chance to see miracles every day. And it tends to be trauma based. I would say the handmaiden of trauma is alcohol. And I've had so many people that have come from sober sisters, and I've learned all these terms I didn't know anything about. Sober sister, Marco Polo, 21-day fast. I hear all these terms all the time, and so it's really cool to be with you guys. The latest epiphany I have, and you guys know when you do this work, all of a sudden you have these blinding flashes of the obvious. We were doing a group recently, and you listen as people introduce themselves. They talk about, what they've done and the work they've done to, I've been in Sober Sisters for a year. I'm alcohol free for 13 months. I do my devotions, and I do yoga, and they'll tell you what they do. And I was listening, and something struck me. I thought, and I use myself as an example. I went through a lot of traumatic events, and I would tell you the similarities between recovery, as Jeff just said, used the word, and that aftermath of trauma where you're trying to recover as well. Or I would say that it's like 99% the same. I mean, it's almost an identical path. And as I'm listening, I'm hearing everybody talk, and I'm thinking about myself. I did things that I was familiar with, and that were for me easy. I wasn't a drinker, so in my mind, as I'm dealing with all my traumatic experience, and much of it has nothing to do with the American military. My time as a Marine, and people need to know that. And so I thought I was physically active, and I didn't drink. Things I was good at, things I'd done most of my life, things I was familiar with. And what I heard in everybody who spoke was the same thing. It was a narrowness of the approach. And what I've learned is in my work here with trauma is there's an intellectual piece. Life is tough. It's tougher when you're stupid. Well, dealing with trauma is tough. It's tougher when you're ignorant. And when I say ignorant, I mean it literally. You just don't know. So there's an intellectual piece. There's an emotional intellectual piece, right? How does this thing impact me emotionally? And what are normal emotional responses? And there's a physical piece. How does it affect me physically? What role does physical fitness play in my life? There's a financial piece, right? That I need to get my finances together, because whether I care to admit it or not, I'm a more fragile version of me. There's a substance piece. Alcohol and drugs will kill you. Layered on top of alcohol, and they go literally, most of the time they go hand in hand. And so there's a couple more pieces, but I won't. There's a self-discipline piece that you have to learn to live with. But everybody I hear would mention, a couple things. And it got me to thinking that, what? We make it much more difficult as we go through recovery, because we don't really acknowledge and comprehend that my stance has to be broader. The things I address have to be broader. And so as a result, what happens is I'm doing my thing and I think I'm doing good, and boom, something happens and I'm triggered. Could be something new that happens in my life. It could be something old that happens in my life. And because I'm ignorant, I feel these emotions. And emotionally, it's not like the little dim light in the backseat of your car, right? It's high beams in your face, and I'm reliving this experience. So how do I react emotionally? Well, with all the same emotions I had the first time, because they come back, right? And I feel like I've done this work, but I haven't made any progress, right? And I kind of bastardized Winston Churchill saying that emotion is a response, courage is a decision. And so after that emotional response rolls over you, right, your brain should begin to talk to you if you've developed the intellectual side of it, which is what you guys do so much of, right, is this wisdom piece of it. But I think a lot of times we spent a lot of inward focus. We burn a lot of capital in recovery because we don't realize how broad the approach should be. And because we don't, we, there's a self-loathing piece in all this. Oh, here I go again. Here's Mac going to screw it up again, right? And I'm going to go back into the valley of the shadow of death, and I'm going to hate, I hate it, and I've screwed it up again because I'm such a loser, because I really can't do this. That whole narrative that takes over. And I think largely it happens because we're not broad enough. We're not addressing the significant variables, and we're not mentally prepared for it. And once we begin to understand and take a little bit broader approach, I think we take a lot of the stress out of it, and we make a steadier progress, if that makes
How
sense.
is
So
that-
that
how
was my blinding flash of the obvious. Just listen to people say
Mhm.
essentially the same things over and over and over again.
But you're painting. I'm trying to deal with trauma, which is tough enough, whatever it is. Now you just told me that now I got to get in shape, and I got to get a better job, and I've got, there it was. I had one thing to focus on, and now it's so I've got to change my whole world to do this right. That's
Well,
I
and
understand
again, right?
but that's pretty overpowering.
Daunting, right? It's pretty
Yeah.
daunting. And let me tell you, that's the truth. You're not going to make a marginal change in your life, right, to go to a place where you can live a great life. Now, the changes you're going to have to make are going to be broad in nature, but some of those places, they might be marginal changes. Other times there'll be substantial changes. Do you have to get a new job? Not necessarily. You have to get better at money. That might be, I need to be more financially disciplined, because most financial planners will tell you it's not so much what it's not so much what you make, it's what you spend. Can you control that? Yeah, you can control that. And so it's learning the art of, how do I do this? Right. So if I don't want to get a new job because I like where I work, I make good money, then what do I have to do? Well, maybe I have to rent that second house out. Maybe we can't let it sit idle all year. And maybe that's enough. And so you have to go down that, and you address that. More physically fit. I'm not talking about making anybody a CrossFit athlete. What I'm talking about is, if you understand the physiology of your brain, if you understand what endorphins do for your brain, you'll know that in recovery, on the backside of trauma, same thing. Those endorphin things, that's an important chemical reaction, and it should happen on a daily basis. And when life shoves you into the valley of the shadow of death, as it will, right? Physical fitness can be one of the things that helps you get out of that valley quicker, right? And make your trip into it very shallow. So it's just this little kind of cut in and cut out, but I know what to do because I understand the breadth of what I have to do. It's not just sitting inside, meditating. And then again, it's not a knock on meditation or anything, but your approach has to be different. And if you'll embrace those differences, and if you'll make little baby step progresses, then you can live not a good life, you can live a great life. But what you're trying to do, and I'll put this in Jeff's language as an offensive lineman, you're trying to chip, right, somebody who's running, right, rushing you. So they're coming to rush you, and they're better than you. And so we're planning for this, because the running back that's going to go out on the pass pattern, he's going to knock this guy off balance, so then Jeff can handle him because he's more than Jeff can handle. And that's not a knock on Jeff. That's how you play the game. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to make this a manageable problem by stopping the blindsided things that happen to you, because I simply have a narrow approach when the problem is like the green slime on Nickelodeon, right? It's coming at you in a big way. Well, once you get broad enough to erect a little bit of a fence, you give yourself some space. And that's what you have to
What
do.
you're talking about really is emotional sobriety. So, and I'm not talking about sobriety in terms of just alcohol, right? Emotional sobriety, where you, let me see if I have this right, because I think when we, our focus is a little bit narrow just because we talk about recovery from alcohol. But right now I'm doing some research about secondary traumatic stress. And our responses from things happen to be, you know, no matter what we go through, if we go through a high school thing with Jeff or a Marine thing with you, we have to heal that underlying reason that we react the way we do. So for instance, if I don't have emotional sobriety, and this is what I'm kind of trying to see if this is what you're talking about, then if I stop drinking, for instance, and I don't drink for 4 years, if I don't take care of those underlying reasons, I'm gonna go into a whack-a-mole role. I'm gonna eat too much. I'm gonna buy everything on Amazon. I may have a relationship problems. I may smoke. I may, you know, have an eating disorder. But if you don't have that emotional maturity, that emotional sobriety, it's gonna pop up somewhere else.
That's exactly it. And then what happens is, as you begin to play whack-a-mole, and you're a more fragile version of yourself, because this
Mhm.
takes a lot of human capital to
Yeah.
do. You hear people say, I'm exhausted by this. I just can't do it. Right. I just can't do it anymore. And you know, I hear that sadly, you know, after people take their lives, you know,
Mhm.
what happened? They were just worn out
Well,
by this fight they've
I
waged.
I have put on a happy face when at the end of the day I didn't put in a great day of at work. I didn't exercise. I did all the things. I didn't do any of the things that would put me into a mentally strong. So now I'm going into, and I, for whatever reason, I'm thinking back when I was doing evening meetings and, you know, new into recovery, but I had to walk in there and put on a happy face or a strong face when my whole day was. I didn't have any momentum, any strength, any. The one that I use, Mac, is that if I'm walking down the street, um, and someone comes up with, you know, says, "Give me your wallet." If I have no money in the wallet, I'll take it, enjoy, have fun with it. But if I've put money in that wallet, I'm gonna fight for it a little bit. And during my day, I kind of liken that to challenges with not drinking in the evening, because if I haven't put in a good day's work, I didn't exercise, I didn't shower, I didn't do anything, and I didn't put any money in my wallet through the day. I got nothing to lose at 5 o'clock when I'm getting challenged to, you know, and I'm getting a craving to drink. The days was crap. I got nothing to fight for. But if I get to 5 o'clock and I got a workout in today, I called my kids and did some of this stuff. I busted my hump at work. I did some of these things. I got value in my hand, and I now that's something I want to protect and not lose when I go into this challenge.
It's really an
So
emotional bank account.
emotional bank account's a great one for it.
What does
But
that
but
mean?
but
What does that mean?
you're putting adding emotional strength into your so that when you get an emotional challenge at the end of the day or whenever,
You're not
you
bankrupt.
have a surplus,
Yeah.
a reserve to go on.
No, you know, and I agree. I agree. And you know, when you can stop the blind side things from happening, right? And I think those are such devastating experiences, because all of a sudden I'm back where I'm at. And as you rightly point out, Jeff, so I've got to be this, and I've got to be this, and I've got to be this. And the answer is, yeah, that's what you got to be. But let me tell you what the most important part is: to make progress in any one area. And then all of a sudden this little light begins to glow. Oh, like those three yahoos that I watched, they're not totally full of crap,
Mhm.
right? And if I can do this, I could probably do this. And in time, I'll be able to move this needle a little bit. Like, I could do this. So to me, again, when you, again, I think, you know, and I say, once you understand the damages forever, the remedy that has to be forever. Okay. So that's the duration. Once you understand the breadth of this, you stop getting blindsided, right? And those are devastating experiences. And I begin to make progress, some faster than others. You know, some I'm already good at. There's a lot of people that are really good with money that struggle. That's not an issue for them. Okay. Cross that off the list. Okay. So now we're down to this number of variables, and we begin to make we begin to make progress. And in that progress is the emotional bank account, the emotional savings account.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a money market account? Is it a savings account? What kind of, did you describe the account?
Me? Or
Yes.
I say it's an emotional bank account, right? Is that you're putting, like Jeff said, I mean, I think Jeff said it the same way. So let me ask you this. So when we want people to make behavior changes in the job that I do, so the job that I do is teaching social workers how to work with families to create, if their kids are unsafe. The goal is to create long-lasting behavior changes that keep your child safe. So let me see if this is what you're saying. So a question that we ask is, if I was a fly in the wall, what would I see you and your family doing in 2 years from now? And I think that would help for people to understand that, yes, we have to do these things now, but where do you want to be? Where do you want to be in 2 years? Where do you want to be in 5 years? And and you tell me what you want, how do you get there? What would I see you be doing? Not necessarily, owning a new business, but I would see you being able to apply all the things you've learned in post-traumatic winning in your life in a way that they work for you, right?
Yeah, and the way I describe that is as you begin to explore this, there's a clarity that comes with that.
Yeah.
Right? There's an intellectual clarity about this term that I call mental fitness, and that is, you don't have a serious mental illness. Most of us have had our asses kicked by life,
Mm-hmm.
and we're looking for an answer. So this clarity begets a wisdom.
Yeah.
Okay, because everything I tell people, right, is truth. I don't waste my time or their time pumping sunshine up anybody's ass. That wisdom and that rock solid wisdom is what begets behavior change. And in post-traumatic winning, behavior change is what begets the joy. And especially your behavior change as you can live it, and you guys are both examples of it. As you begin to change and transform other people's lives, you transform your own life. And that's what all three of us do.
Well,
And
I think a lot of people don't want what they see when they start your program or my program or whatever we do. In the beginning, they look at it as, I'm not going to drink anymore. But that's not good enough. Not drinking's not good enough. What's good enough is to replace that behavior with a healthy one: financial security, physical health, mental health, all of that.
intimacy,
right? All of that happens when you look at behavior change. Not a dead man could stop doing something, right? A dead man, you don't do that. Anybody could do that. But to change it, replace it with a healthy behavior is what I see you're talking about.
I think what Mac also is hitting with me is that if to work on one thing is great, but if at the same time I feel like I'm a piece of crap with my finances, I'm a piece of crap physically, I'm a piece of crap of this, I'm not going to be 100% with the one I'm trying to work on. Does that make any? Is that?
Yeah, and I'll tell you
Like,
what. And as you struggle in those other areas, as you struggle in those other areas, they're going to put stress on your desire to drink.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's not
something,
or do something,
or eat, or leave, cheat on your spouse, or cheat, maybe not return those things at the store that you accidentally walked out of it, not paying for. I'm just saying all that. I've seen you do. No, I'm kidding. I just did that the other day. I was on the bottom of the cart, and of course I went back in and paid for it. And they're like, "Oh my gosh, why did you do that?"
Who are you?
I wouldn't have done that 5 years ago. Not that I was good or bad. I just would have said F it, but when you're present, when you're present all the time, you don't have this fakeness with alcohol or whatever, eating whatever you have. If you have that clarity, you're going to do the right thing everywhere. which is
I
that
was gonna
global thing
I
you're
was
talking
gonna say
about.
that I feel like if I'm not gonna truly I'm not gonna be able to have the success in it if I feel like I'm a crap about something else. It's I'm not gonna I'm not gonna feel like I've quit drinking, I am a righteous person, I am doing great, I'm the man, when I know that physically I stink, financially I'm making horrible choices, I'm not doing what so I'm not gonna I can't be my best in one thing if I'm not good in the other. They'll cancel each other and bring the other ones down, I think.
Yeah,
It'll
it's
just
like
pop up somewhere else.
you're what
That's my whack-a-mole theory. If you
you're
don't take
white
care of
knuckling it,
yourself,
right? You're white
yeah.
Right.
knuckling it, and you're holding on, and you have that incredible. And again, and I say this as a former Marine. Whether I care to admit it or not, I'm a more fragile version of who I used to be. I
Yeah.
can't if I put myself in certain situations, I'm not going to react well to them, and so once I have to realize that, and then I have to live my life accordingly. And the whole premise, I think, is to live a great life. We all get one lap around the track,
Yeah.
right? And so you want to live a great life. So it's not simply the denial, right, of drinking, right? Okay, that is a piece of it, no doubt. You got to get that under control, right, in order for you to live a great life. But there's all these other pieces that go in there. And as you guys rightly point out, as Jeff is pointing out, if my relationship with my significant other is awful, if I don't have any intimacy in my life, right, I'm dying in this isolated space, right? And isolation will straight up kill you,
Yeah.
and so once you begin to realize this and you begin to work on this, and all of a sudden these other stressors, the steam goes out, and then I'm not blindsided anymore, and I see a little bit of progress. Then it's like, oh, oh my God. And again, people like me, I'll speak for myself. Joy is not supposed to be the dominant emotion in my life, but it is.
Mhm.
But it is. I mean, I just had a kid from Rockland come up to me last Friday. And I was speaking, and he said, "Do you think you could help my brother? He has MS and he doesn't want to live anymore." I said, "Well, I think we could help him." He said, "Will you talk to my mom?" And I said, "Absolutely, I will." Right. And I spoke with her for about 2.5 hours on Sunday. And he's so excited because he thinks he's going to be able to create purpose in his brother's life. What happens when somebody with MS who's confined to a wheelchair, the whole COVID thing created more isolation in an isolated person's life?
Mhm.
What happens when you can stick your hand into the valley of the shadow of death for that person and pull them out? And then the power of that person's words about, right, you think it's bad in your world, but let me show you my world. And to hear the joy in his voice. And so you see these, I'm privileged to see these miracles all the time, right? And this is a broad, complex problem. And alcohol is a huge, I would say most of the time the problem is soaked in alcohol,
Mhm.
and it's a huge part of the problem. But, right, not understanding that there's a variety of factors in there and how broad your stance needs to be, right, is part of a lot of times what keeps us in this kind of neutral steering place where our treads are moving, right? We're moving up, we're spinning, we're moving up, we're moving back, on a regular basis. And my point is, there's a broader approach from the start is a better approach. And Peggy made the comment before we came on that she hasn't made yet, and I'm getting kind of impatient with her, so I'm going to introduce her to it. And that is prioritizing,
Mhm.
right, these areas. Can I show my screen? Can you let me show my screen, Jeffrey?
I don't think so.
You know what? I don't know that I can do that.
Okay.
I
No,
this
but
is
again, it's just this pyramid,
yeah.
and across the bottom at the base, it says intellect, emotional, physical, financial, disclosure, talking about it, substances, and self-discipline. And that's the base, right? From that comes clarity, right? About this idea of what it is to be mentally fit. From that clarity comes a very, very hard substance, which is your wisdom. The things you're going to know are true. The things that you say that people write down and say, "Oh my God, you know," and then from that wisdom becomes behavior change.
Mhm.
That behavior change begets joy,
Yeah.
right? And it's built very solidly from the bottom up, like a pyramid,
Well, we don't
right?
have anything. When we first start out in any endeavor, we don't have insight. Like, how many times have we heard people say, God, Mac has no insight. But of course, you don't have
What?
any insight to start out
I
with.
hear it all the
You
time.
just don't have it.
I'd never
So,
heard that in my life.
so and again, I only know what I know with teaching social work is that I've heard other social workers say, "Oh my God, that dad has no insight." Well, duh, he doesn't have any insight right now. So we have to figure out a way to make those behavior changes stick. So the idea of safety for you, me, for our children is acts of protection demonstrated over time. We can't just do something for 30 days. It depends on what it is, what we want to learn. Sometimes it takes us longer, sometimes it takes us shorter. But if I have a dad who maybe is physically abusive and he really doesn't have the insight to understand what his physical abuse, the impact, the emotional impact, the physical impact on his son, but he tries to discipline his son in ways that don't include physical punishment, timeouts, whatever, but it's not physical, right? And then what he sees at the end is that, oh my God, Peggy, I have such a good relationship with my son now. And he never started out thinking, I'm going to have a great relationship with my son. He started out like, I'm going to get in trouble if probably really justified, my dad hit me, I'm going to hit my kid. But then, so nobody has any insight in the beginning. It's
Right.
what you were talking about. It's that I love working with people because when I see the light go on,
Oh my God.
it I don't think there's any bigger reward.
No.
Not a second home, not you and Jeff. I'm kidding.
What?
But when
Maybe
you
not the
see that
second
light,
home or Jeff,
light
but
go
certainly.
on, it's
No, that's the drug you need to get on, right?
incredible. It's
That's the
incredible.
drug. That it's free. You cannot overdose. It is the drug to get on. It's the drug that you crave when you, and again, I don't think any, for all of us, you don't have to do it like I do it or Peggy or Jeff
No.
do it in a very public way. But every one of us will have multiple opportunities every week with a friend, a family member, or somebody we know, right, who is struggling in a huge way. Will you have a conversation with them? Will you open a door to possibly changing their life? And all you have to do is say, "Hey, I heard what you just said.
It's
You
listening.
know,
You have to listen.
you
We have
know
to
there's nothing
really
wrong with you."
we have to listen and not listen to respond.
Right. And you
Someone
know
in the
there's nothing wrong
chat,
with you, and
Objective.
everything you said is normal, right? And I'd love to talk to you about some of this stuff. And that's how you get there. It's not hard.
someone in the chat said that they beat themselves up daily, and I think we all do that. And I think my goal for myself in that situation is I've got to give myself reasons to not only not beat myself up, but to give myself reasons to say, "Hey, nice job today." I had to give, and that was hard because when I'm ready to beat myself up, I quit, I lose, I'm worthless, and I can snowball down into the hole even more. The hard step is to what can I do to give myself a reason not to beat myself up? I mean, is that your suggestions of digging that out, and that comes in with all
Well, let
the
me. I talk about
and I know we
awards.
don't know the specifics, but
I talk about awards, right? Most kids today have a box full of medals, most of them soccer medals that they get at everything they go to, right? And you never hear a little kid say, "Hey, grandma, stay right here. I'm going to run in and get a box of these worthless soccer medals that I got for doing nothing because I want you to see them. They're really cool." Kids don't say that. Want to know why? Because they don't earn them. You can't have esteem for something that you don't earn. Nobody can give it to you, and you get it from what you truly achieve in life. And I would say you get it in great quantities when you achieve hard things. And I think that's why this is so important because, again, we go through whatever we go through in life, right? And then we're trying to get our life together, but it's not broad enough, right? It's very narrow, these things that I do, right? And then I'm getting knocked by my finances. I'm getting knocked by my relationship. I'm getting knocked by my fitness. And I can't make any traction. And this isn't really working for me. And then the self-loathing thing kicks in. This is my fault. I did this. This started when I was a teenager. I'm a loser. I can't do this. It's just too hard. You're never going to be anything. And words that maybe a parent or a spouse said to you, you're shit. You will never. And it's that self-loathing thing. And so real success is important. And that's why I say fundamental to this is knowing you can do it. You can do every bit of it. But one, getting blindsided is bad, especially when you're fragile. And I know that for a fact. And so this broader approach, understanding it, I think is a huge piece, especially at the beginning. And then you're going to understand, okay, this is all the areas I've got to deal with. So the ask is big. I'm starting to make progress, and I've stopped getting blindsided. And I think now that's true progress. Now I did this. That to me, that's where true self-esteem comes from.
Well, it's the
Right.
knowing, right? The knowing that you're no longer bullshitting yourself. You are healing mind, body, and soul. So if you could really break down, your pillars, or I can't remember exactly what they're called, is that you can really categorize those. Your brain, your mind, body, and soul. Just that's what it would. And I think that word balanced is overused because we're often out of balance, but our ability to use that toolbox keeps us afloat, right? Because I think we jump to that too much. Like we're always trying to seek balance in our life. I'm not sure that balance is the word.
No, I would tell you, Peggy, we're constantly in a state of being imbalanced. But
Yeah.
what I would tell you, and I'll use the sports analogy again, it's one thing to be off balance. It's another thing to get freight trained by somebody that you don't even see coming.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so that's what I think we're talking about. It's one thing for me to be off balance, and I'm always fighting to gain, equilibrium in some form of my life and whatnot. That's a daily struggle. But here's what I'm trying to preclude. Given my fragility, I can't get blindsided because that kicks my ass, right? Not only emotionally, but intellectually as well. And that's when the self-loathing kicks in, and I just can't take that much of it anymore. And that's when you hear that, I can't take it anymore.
Mac, do you have a set of questions that you've as a baseline to establish where you are on that? I mean, do
Yeah.
you have,
I have
do
one
you go
I have one question. Tell me what you do in your attempt to, stop drinking, right? Tell me what you do. And they'll tell you. And it's always narrow.
Well, do you think it's also external versus internal? Like, I think people do get stuck in our world, especially that. Well, my husband drinks, so that's a big trigger for me, and he doesn't support me, so that's why I'm not successful. I think what you're talking about is that self-discipline, where no matter what other people do, we're only responsible to ourselves. And we can only change ourselves.
Right. I would tell you that in my opinion, the long pole in the tent of success is self-discipline.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
coming to that kind of very daily stoic conclusion that I can control my response. I can't control other people. I can
Right.
only control my response, and I'm going to do that, and to the best of my ability. But I can't control the responses of other people, and I have to learn to accept that. And
Mhm.
again, and that's part of the intellectual piece of all of this, right? What
Well,
can I
you can
do?
get resentful, right? You get resentful because you
Absolutely.
want the other person to change.
Right.
I mean, I'm a walking example of that. Having to play nursemaid to my poor husband, who, had surgery. Like, we're sort of imbalanced right now. He does all the, he does all the stuff, right? And now I started to find myself getting a little resentful that I'm doing the things that he always does. And all the things that I do. Like, my routine is like totally destroyed right now.
You are
And
so
people,
sweet.
I'm a routine person. Part of my self-discipline is what I do every single morning and what I do every single night. Well, the past 2 weeks, that's,
I feel Paul's
my
pain.
thought pattern is like disrupted every 5 minutes by Peggy, 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 and not giving me 6 seconds to get up off my ass and go in there, see what he wants before he says it again. Right?
Should be done
And so
before.
I'm starting to blame him, but I know that I have enough emotional sobriety to say this is temporary. Thank God. And I just put him in the back seat on the way to the doctor's yesterday so that he could be a true backseat driver. But
There's a big truth though to what with having the balance, because I can have, and I don't even know where it comes from sometimes, but just think I'm rocking life right now and on top of it, and one little thing that can hit me can stagger me hard for the day. And it's usually one I didn't see coming, didn't anticipate.
right.
And it's not a specific, oh, it's always this, or it can be anything, even a thought sometimes, and just wobble my legs.
Well, and that's I made the seminars I do used to be 5 videos long, and there's a 6th one now.
Good. That was
Because
going to be my next question. Like, you're telling all of us this. So what's next?
and so the 6th video was a woman in Texas had gone through the seminar, and she's now doing things she'd never done, and she's talking about, very, very private and quiet person, shy, and talking about it, and she's physically active, and a family dealing with issues of addiction in a big way, like right now. So it came back into the house, and she's the one that said, I feel like I did all that work and I've made no progress. I'm right back in the same place. And so to me, another part of the intellectual development is understanding that when that stuff comes back, that's exactly what you're going to feel. So kind of what Jeff
Oh,
said,
yeah.
I get, and I get hit, but I'm not blindsided, because I know these things are going to happen. I know that I'm going to get out there, and I'm going to, instead of going for 1 walk today, I'm going to go walk for 2. I'm going to sit down and talk to my husband, about this on a nightly basis. And these are the things I know I've got to do, because I know how to do this. I've anticipated this. And so it was almost kind of a look over the horizon, and that, okay, what next? How is this going to impact you now that you know these things? What are you going to feel? And I think that's a big piece of it, that what's going to happen, and as it begins to happen, right, the emotion kind of washes over you, and
Yeah.
then your intellect kicks in, and you say, okay, do this, do this, do this. And I think that intellectual preparation for when things go wrong is a big part of limiting how much you get shoved off balance, and eliminating, to the greatest extent that you can, that you're going to get blindsided, because it's the blind side that really takes is devastating damage.
But
And
if you
so,
have that core, you're kind of, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you have that bottom core and it's part of you, it's part of your character. No matter what happens, that's external, mostly. I mean, things can happen to us too, but you have the emotional sobriety to take it on. And so, yes, it obviously we can't stop tragedy from happening to people. Just look at the world right now. But going back to what you said, emotion is a reaction, courage is a response. It's how we respond to things that makes us who we are.
right. And understanding that emotional response is going to come, and then it's going to wash over you, and then you're going to hear your intellectual development begin to kick in. And if you do have a broader approach, you're not going to get knocked as far, and you're going to see, oh my God, this stuff actually works. Like, this has utility in my life. And then that's why we replicate it, because it does work.
Yeah. I love
And
that word, utility. I love that word. Yeah.
Hey, Mac, when's the next session?
Well, here's what I've taken to doing. What I tell people is get a group of people together, 5 people, 4 people, and I'll do it for your group. So
Nice.
I'm not now trying to put together groups of, 30 or 40 people to do it. I tell people, if you like to go through the post-traumatic winning program, get a group of 4 or 5 people. And that's what the last group is. Betsy did it. Betsy's from
I love
Iowa.
that.
Yeah. And it was very cool because they knew each other, a little bit. Most of them did.
Mhm.
And so there was a greater connection right from the start.
Trust. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love
And
it.
then
That's
it's
a great approach because again, you're going to have 5 people that told 25 people that told, that's a beautiful approach. I really like that a lot.
right. So it's 8 weeks, I think. No, it's 7 weeks.
Mhm.
And all we do essentially is watch a video and then get together and talk about it. And then I used to let people just watch the videos, but I didn't do that for very long because after I did the first seminar, and I will tell you this, Jeff was such a great participant because his self-deprecating nature, right,
Mhm.
helped a lot of people. Because a lot of people, I mean, will do say that, and Jeff would say, well, all Mac's trauma is cool. It's all cool and masculine. He's a Marine, he went to war, and these other things have happened to him in his life. Mine were, I couldn't drive across a bridge, right? I could without being drunk. I couldn't, my dad was an Amway salesman. And I found that humiliating. And it was so healthy for everybody to hear that these are the things that I don't talk about. And then one night he threw out that girl, humiliated me by walking off the dance floor. And it's something that I still think about. And and it almost made it okay for other people to bring forth their things that, well, you might not think this is traumatic, but it had a devastating impact on me. And so it's, if you'll go there and you begin to talk about this stuff, and the changes that I see, it's just I tell everybody I have the coolest job of anybody I know, because I honestly, I get to watch miracles. And then people that have been sexually abused from the time they were children,
Mhm.
right, look and say, hey, I now see the world in technicolor, and I used to only see it in black and white because of
Yeah.
what I've learned. And you guys have been such a big part of it. And the alcohol piece of it is huge. And I meet so many people that have
Universal.
gone
I totally think it's universal. It doesn't matter, like I said, it doesn't matter if it's alcohol or food or sex or spending or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's just a way of coping.
it's
From
it's the
trauma.
it's the numbing agent. So
Yeah,
fill in the blank,
it doesn't
right?
matter,
Is it
right?
fitness?
The tools are the same.
Right. Is it fitness? The guy's a CrossFit freak. Well, that looks like a great habit until you realize he's running from intimacy, his finances are jacked up, and he comes down here just to numb himself.
Yeah.
It's the same as alcohol.
Or he does CrossFit so he can go to the bar and have 5 drinks. I don't know how many women drink green juice during the day, do run, go to the gym, everything, and then come home and drink a bottle of wine.
I love what you said, Mac, about it's just a way to numb it, what you're running from.
You're
It's the numbing.
you're eating it, you're drinking it, you're spending it, doesn't matter.
And so while you guys start, um, right, in the lane of alcohol, everything you teach can be transferred to any one of those lanes.
Yeah. That's
Everything you teach. And that's I mean, that's about this whole thing about transforming your life. And again, and my point, and the reason why I called Jeff a few weeks ago was, I see this all the time when people introduce themselves and they talk about how they deal with their shit, and it's always too narrow, and it's always too narrow. And as a result, you get knocked backwards, and then whether you start drinking again or you go back into bad behaviors, what you're not doing is you're not making progress in your life. You're not creating greater intimacy. You're not creating more joy. All the things that we want to do and we need to do in our lives, we're failing at. And then it becomes very devastating because we're more fragile.
Yeah.
And
What
so,
Father Richard Rohr says, what's not transformed is transmitted to our kids, to our coworkers, to our spouses. So if we don't make that transformation ourselves in our own lives, we're going to transmit it to the people around us. In
and
the same way that we transform ourselves and we bring joy to the people around us.
and I can tell you the ways that we do it. When I don't know how to transform myself, and one of my kids is struggling, and we may have a conversation. At the end of the day, I'll look at them and say, "Hey, man, you just got to man up, right? The whole world's not going to stop for you. You got to man up. You got to be a man."
Yeah.
Okay, whatever that means, But we've just closed off a conversation. We've closed off and I had a young bartender in Las Vegas who had some really bad stuff happen, and he said he tried to talk to his cousin, and he goes, "Come on, dude, man up, man. What are you doing? Why are we having this conversation?" And you're right, Peggy. That's a person that doesn't know how to have this conversation.
Right.
Right. And so shut it down because we're just not going there. Vietnam veterans went through the same
Yeah.
thing when they came home. Nobody would deal with them. So they just put it in the box. They put the box in the closet, and they tried to lock the closet door, except the closet door didn't stay locked. And
Everybody around them suffers for it. So
everybody. Yeah.
well,
It takes a village. A village can also be affected by all of this in a very, very negative way. There's the music. Thanks for joining us tonight.
How do we get a hold of you?
Posttraumaticwinning.com. All that stuff comes to this cell phone right here. So I don't have a corporate office. I don't have anything. All I have is me, and this is what I do. If I could help you,
He'll answer the phone. I will tell you that.
Friend.
He will.
Well, the other thing is Mac can be pretty humble, but the man has testified before Congress, so he's not just a little dude. So we love you, Mac, and I'm really glad to talk to you tonight.
No, it's my privilege. Thank you, guys.
All right, buddy. We'll talk soon. Hang on there. See everyone. We'll see you next week. Oh, my mouse is out. Great. I knew this was happening.
That's disgusting.
You know what? I think I have to.
What does that mean exactly? That
I might have to turn my computer off to end the show.
Okay.
Literally, I'm moving the mouse.
Is this the first time you've ever done this?
No, but this is not. This second time that the mouse is stuck. So I think literally, I'm such a professional. This is. Oh goodness! All right. Well, we're gonna reboot everyone. So you guys have a great one, and hopefully, with that. All right. Take care. I see now I gotta reach around and hold this thing. It's gonna be just wonderful. Hey, you know what though? What I did find was when I just did that is I found the Peggy got me this from Hawaii, so I got that.
Come on.
All right, buddy. Take care. We'll see you.
Bye, Jeff.